Shocking act of kindness. CEO discovers boy's freezing sister and transforms their lives forever. The wind howled outside, slicing through the fragile fabric of Mike's modest home. Inside, the chilling air settled around him like an unwanted guest, especially troubling because of Lily's delicate state. At just 6, she was often ill, her small frame too weak to battle the relentless Midwestern winters. Mike clenched his jaw, listening to the rattling radiator, aware that it was the last source of warmth they had. Failure echoed in every corner of his mind as he fought against the overwhelming anxiety and despair that loomed like the snowdrifts outside the window. How to keep Lily warm? How to find the money for the heater repair? Questions churned relentlessly, gnawing at his nervous disposition as he thought about the jobs he had yet to work that night. He had agreed to cover for a coworker he couldn't afford to lose a shift. Meanwhile, 12-year-old Ethan stood in the corner, clutching his little sister against him. If the heater broke, they needed to act, but Mike was stuck in a frantic loop of guilt for not being enough. Even as he heard his son's shivering breaths, Mike felt extreme pressure bearing down, a father competing against the bitter night. Should he leave work early to resolve the emergency? Or could they huddle under blankets and wait until morning? A pounding headache was forming between his temples, the harsh reality of their situation feeding his racing thoughts. Suddenly, the heater let out a pathetic wheeze, completely silent thereafter. Mike cursed under his breath. He noticed Ethan's determined shift. He'd seen the glimmer of resourcefulness in his son's eyes. Panic soared as if a fire had ignited in his chest. "Ethan, where are you going?" "Dad, if we wait, Lily's going to get sick," the boy insisted, his small face set with grim determination. Mike's heart ached, knowing his son felt the weight of responsibility far too soon. It didn't seem fair. Just then, Mike's phone buzzed with an urgent notification, pulling him from the rising storm of anxiety. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue." Mike barely heard the notification, his mind already racing ahead. Ethan, in that moment of shared dread, pushed the door open. Cold air rushed in, a slap to Mike's senses as he gripped the frame, fingers trembling. He watched helplessly as his boy wrapped Lily in every layer they owned, determinedly trudging out into the bitter night. How did it come to this? Guilt surged in his veins. Was Mike's struggle to provide too much? Outside, the crunch of snow under Ethan's determined footsteps echoed louder than Mike's thoughts. In that soup kitchen, lives intertwined in ways that felt fateful. Lisa, the reclusive CEO, was carrying the weight of her own childhood memories when she stumbled upon Ethan and Lily. Their frail figures struck deep chords of empathy inside her, mirroring shadows of her past. Would she act? Could she guarantee the safety of their fragility? Mike wrestled with his decisions, questioning where the balance lay between chasing the dollar and being the father his children needed. Each second passed like a lifetime, their fates now entwined in the unforgiving winter, leaving a swirling storm of uncertainty brewing silently as the heat of life's moment drew closer. Ethan's breath became visible in the icy air, a painful reminder of the urgency of their plight. Shadows cast by the flickering streetlights danced ominously on the snow, and with each step he took, Mike felt a deep stab of helplessness. He had always prided himself on being a reliable provider, yet tonight, he was reduced to contemplating the void behind him, memories of laughter and warmth, now swallowed by the relentless winds of adversity. Desperation clawed at his chest. Should he call after Ethan, take the reins and face what felt like an insurmountable challenge? The thought slithered through his mind, stirring a tumult of conflicting emotions. The kids needed him present, yet the sinister pull of the outside world, the potential for jobs that could translate to a few extra dollars, grew stronger as he resisted an instinctual urge to turn back and seek out comfort. He felt swallowed by the dark night as if the world was holding its breath. What could he offer his children? Each question felt heavier than the last, drowning out his determination. He saw Ethan, his small shoulders squared against the wind, carrying the weight of a sibling's love. There was something formidable there, something Mike hadn't unearthed in himself for a while. This moment unveiled a flicker of hope, a glimpse of tenacity that twinkled faintly amid the bitter cold. In the soup kitchen, Lisa had moments from her own life flash before her. The scene before her was disingenuous in its poverty but genuine in its demand for compassion. As she watched Ethan's little hands clutching his sister, something shifted inside her, a renewed conviction to not allow her privilege to become a barrier against empathy. She was reminded of the times she had shied away from asking for help, how pride had often dulled her sense of connection to life's deeper fabric. With her heart racing, she moved forward, driven by an instinct she hadn't paid attention to in years. Could it be that in helping them, she might also reclaim a piece of herself hidden long ago? Yet a gnawing apprehension remained. Was she prepared to deal with the vulnerabilities of other people's lives in a manner that would not overshadow her own? Mike, back at home, felt the weight of his choices compressing around him like an unyielding vice. Each tick of the clock hammered at his anxiety. Could he afford to chase paychecks any longer while the children were facing impending failure? He envisioned a future clouded with uncertainty, the chilling prospect of winter extending far beyond the current season. With a sudden breath, he rallied himself. Perhaps it was time for a change, a moment to confront the fear of failure in earnest. Life perhaps had no clear path drawn ahead, but the aching warmth he felt as he thought about Lily's smile urged him into action. Innovative solutions began to stir, his ingrained fear shifted into motivation. "Ethan, come back!" he finally yelled, his voice cutting through the night. The door creaked open, and Ethan stopped, mid-stride, the icy air chilling his resolve. The moment brimming with tension pulled taut between father and son as Mike realized it was not too late to take back his fear and turn it against the shadows looming outside. "Dad, we need to get to the shelter," Ethan shouted back, his small frame shivering under the weight of responsibility. The pull within the house that was once despair transformed into a shared goal. "Then let us move together," Mike said, the embers of resolve igniting within him, even as uncertainty fluttered in the pit of his stomach. They shared a glance, a mutual understanding sparking hope, but challenges remained, lurking beneath the surface of their determined hearts. Little did Mike know, Lisa was already on a collision course with change too, a decision forming that might reshape their future significantly. The night trembled with potential. Where would it lead them all? The shelter's front door swung open swiftly, releasing a wave of warmth that wrapped around Mike like a comforting blanket. The collective hum of chatter and laughter washed over him, momentarily soothing the frigid dread that had gripped his heart. He glanced down at Ethan, whose thin frame was shivering, coating his cheeks with a bright flush. This was a moment that demanded steadfastness, a chance to redirect his family's trajectory while still confronting the very foundation of his inadequacies. As they stepped inside, Mike inhaled deeply, the scent of cooking broth and baked bread enveloping him in an odd mix of nostalgia and urgency. He had come a long way from the man who flinched at the idea of accepting help. Within the past few moments, the heaviness in his heart transformed to a spark of resolve. He yearned to become the father they needed, not just in presence but in spirit. Ethan's eyes darted across the crowded space, scanning the room for familiar faces. Each interaction seemed to ripple, carrying stories propelled by shared struggles. Mike noticed a frail woman in a corner, her hands trembling as she poured soup into bowls. The sight ignited something within him. Here he was aware, present, ready to give back. Perhaps this could be a doorway to renewal, not solely for him, but for others searching for warmth in these icy conditions. "Let's help," he proposed to Ethan, nodding toward the serving station. Surprised, Ethan hesitated for a moment, his innate desire to support his father battling with the bashfulness of a child. Mike knelt down, looking straight into his son's wide eyes. "It matters. We can make a difference. Even the smallest act of kindness can change someone's day." Eyes glimmering, Ethan nodded slowly. They moved toward the soup kitchen's chaotic heart, where laughter intermingled with the clattering of cutlery. Mike felt the flickers of empowerment, a mere idea swelling into deliberate action, a personal promise to his children that they would not live confined by fear or perceived inadequacies. Lisa observed them from a distance as they began serving soup with an earnestness that tugged at her own intentions. She was used to wielding power dynamics in board meetings, making decisions that shaped lives in a very different context, yet what she saw in Mike stirred something unprecedented within her. Fearlessness and vulnerability coalesced. Their encounter sparked a realization this was the essence of leadership, not merely handing out resources, but embracing humanity with open arms. As the night progressed, Mike and Ethan served alongside others, creating connections forged in empathy. For every bowl they ladled, Mike felt himself shedding layers of self-doubt. How long had he imprisoned himself in the belly of dread? This hadn't just been about providing, it was about recognizing the potential within him to be an agent of change. At one point, he caught Lisa's gaze. It wasn't just a fleeting moment, it was a mutual recognition of evolving destinies. They were both on an expedition of rediscovery, she, breaking free from her own gilded facade, and he, realizing that financial stability wasn't the only form of wealth. In a heartbeat, everything shifted. A young boy approached Ethan, his face streaked with dirt but bright with hope. "Can you help me with my little sister?" "She's really cold," he murmured. The boy's words struck Mike to his core, an echo of his own worries. A decision lay ahead of them once again. The reality of what they would do next rooted itself deep. The essence of their respective journeys now intertwined, but they also hovered on the edge of vulnerability. Would they extend their newfound empathy to one more life? Would Mike summon the courage to step beyond his past discomfort, or would Lisa accept that the power of her position now required action? As the air thickened with unspoken questions, a quiet tension settled in. Their next moves would determine not only the fate of a little girl but also reshape what they believed about their own paths. The choice loomed large, but so too did the promise of transformation. The moment hung in the balance. Would they embrace it, crossing the threshold of fear into a shared future? Mike glanced at Ethan, whose eyes brimmed with uncertainty. It was a moment pregnant with possibility, yet laced with anxiety. The boy's plea was a ripple through Mike's emotional waters, forcing him to reflect on his own recent awakening. Was he truly ready to step into a role that demanded selflessness? "Let us go," Mike finally said, his voice low but firm, pushing away the shadows of hesitation that loomed in his mind. Ethan nodded, though uncertainty still flickered in his gaze. With resolve, Mike led them toward the young boy, who clutched the sleeves of his worn-out jacket, bearing his shivering sister to the biting cold, even indoors. The sight of the little girl, wrapped in a thin shawl, struck Mike hard. She looked fragile, vulnerable like a bird caught in a storm. He felt a well of instinctive protectiveness swell within him. It called for action. No longer could he stand by and watch. "Where is she?" Mike asked, crouching down to the boy's level. "Outside, behind the building." "She can't walk well," the boy stammered, urgency rising in his voice. Ethan looked up at his father, a newfound determination flickering in his eyes. Mike felt that undeniable instinct to leap into action, not just for the girl, but as a promise to Ethan that they could forge a different path. Holding his son's hand tightly, they set off outside, the cold air slapping them as they exited the warmth of the shelter. The street was dimly lit, a shroud of darkness cloaked the ground, amplifying the sounds of their hurried footsteps on the pavement. Mike's heart raced with an urgency that had become all too familiar. Each step toward the unknown was a confrontation with the fear he had battled for so long. "What if she's too cold?" Ethan whispered, his voice quivering. "We'll take care of her." "We have to," Mike assured him, forcing an air of confidence. The density of their surroundings shrank, amplifying the moment's gravity. He felt a hint of hesitation creeping back, thoughts swirling about his past failures, but he refused to succumb. Within moments, they spotted her hunched against the wall, her tiny frame nearly lost in the shadows. Mike's heart twisted as he knelt beside her, gently brushing her hair away from her face. Her pale cheeks were marred with the biting chill, but her big eyes, filled with confusion and fear, seemed vast under the street lamp's glow. He saw a flicker of vulnerability that mirrored his own struggles. "Hey there. What's your name?" he asked softly, trying to comfort her. "I'm Mia," she stammered, her response muffled by the cough that rattled through her small frame. Mike could feel the weight of her fragility. She was fighting her own battle against a harsh world. At that moment, an understanding washed over him. What he really needed wasn't just to help a child or save the day. It was to allow himself to truly connect with another human being and share their burdens, however heavy they might be. "We've got to get you warm, Mia. Ethan, do you want to help me carry her?" Mike asked, glancing at his son. The opportunity for Ethan to be part of something greater hung in the air, almost tangible. Ethan nodded, determination carved into his young features as he moved alongside Mike. Together, they hoisted Mia between them, a shared weight that felt symbolic. The act was a balm to Mike's own insecurities. The knowledge that he was doing something genuinely meaningful infused him with purpose. As they returned to the shelter, Mike could feel something shifting again, not just within himself, but in Ethan. The earlier uncertainty had left room for determination. Here they were transforming fear into action, lifting another life alongside their own as they faced the frigid reality together. But in the depths of this moment, an unsettling thought lingered. Were they truly ready to embody this new light? The enormity of their actions loomed above them, blurring the lines of who they used to be and who they could become. As they stepped back through the doors, a new voice called out from the darkness, a silhouette emerging from the shadows. "What possessed you to help a stranger?" It was Lisa, her tone tinged with intrigue and surprise. Mike turned toward her, ready to embrace the uncertainty of this new encounter, aware that their paths were about to intertwine in ways he could scarcely imagine. As Lisa approached, a silent question hung between them. Was this the beginning of something transformative, or would their past fears still bind them? Mike steadied himself, the faint flicker of uncertainty now mingling with curiosity. Lisa stood before him, the light casting sharp lines across her features, making her look both formidable and vulnerable all at once. The question she posed lingered in the air, resonating deeply within him. What had compelled him to act? "Do you really think it's strange?" Mike replied, searching for the right words. Mia needed help. And so did her brother. Lisa's gaze softened slightly, but her brow remained furrowed, as if she was laboring to decode his motivations. "It's not about being strange, Mike. It's about understanding the consequences. You realize stepping in changes everything, don't you?" Her words hung heavily between them. Mike could feel Ethan shift beside him, a mixture of pride and uncertainty emblazed in his young face. Had he truly considered the ramifications of their actions beyond the immediate need? He had always been the one to act first, think later, the kind of person who dove headfirst into challenges, yet this felt different. "I'm not sure I should have," Mike admitted, his voice lower now, almost a whisper. "But it felt necessary." Lisa took a step closer, eyes compelling him to confront what he sought to ignore. "Necessary or impulsive? You want to help, but do you really know how? This isn't something you can take lightly, Mike." Her challenge pressed against the walls he had built, which had so far safeguarded him from engaging deeply with others' pain. Confronted with this new perspective, he felt the vulnerability drain from his chest as shame began seeping in. Did he truly have the capacity to affect Mia's life positively, or would the consequences weigh down on him later, reminders of what he had failed to provide? "I can't just walk away," he finally said, trying to gather his resolve. "I'm trying to be better for Ethan and for myself. You know it's not just about you, right?" Lisa said, her voice softer now, showing a glimmer of understanding amidst her probing questions. "This girl is a step into something bigger. You want to level up in your life and show Ethan the right path, but that's a massive leap." Ethan, listening intently, looked up at his father. "What if we could help more kids like Mia? Maybe we could do something big." Mike weighed Ethan's words, his heart swelling with a mixture of pride and dread. His son was right, this could be the spark they needed to usher in change, but could he sustain it? Moving forward would require a commitment he didn't fully understand yet. "Helping one child is a step," Lisa interjected. "But committing to a solution, what wouldn't you be willing to risk with an impact this size? It might not go how you expect." Mike felt fear and excitement clash, spiraling around him like a whirlwind. What if, in this moment, he was being offered more than just the chance to help Mia. Maybe it was about confronting his deepest fears, his doubts about his ability to sustain real change. Lisa's cryptic challenge gnawed at him, sparking questions he had tried to avoid for years. What if I fail? He murmured, almost to himself. Then you'll know how to rise again, she said, her voice steady. But you won't find out if you don't first step out of your comfort zone. As he glanced at Ethan, hope flickered back in his heart. Could this be their way forward, together? The thought of helping more than just Mia sparked something deep within him, a call to action that resonated far beyond his own personal struggles. But standing there, caught in the gravity of the moment, Mike felt the weight of his past loom larger than ever. Was he ready for the kind of commitment that would reshape his life, and that of his son? Don't just step into the role, own it, Lisa said pointedly, breaking through his reverie, a challenge intertwined with an invitation. Their collective future hung by a thread, thick with uncertainty and potential. He needed to decide, and fast. As the weight of the moment settled, a new voice emerged from the shadows behind Lisa. What are you all plotting? You better not leave me out of this. Mike turned, heart pounding anew, sensing another shift heading their way, akin to the whirlwind of emotions that had only just begun to unfurl. The unexpected voice drew Mike's attention, pulling him out of the tumult swirling in his mind. He turned to see a woman in her 30s stepping forward, her painted nails glimmering under the harsh fluorescent lights. She exuded confidence, her past authority as evident as the logo of the nonprofit she represented, emblazoned across her chest. Immediately, Mike felt a wave of skepticism wash over him. Hadn't he been trying to scale back the chaos in his life? Are you with her? He asked, nodding toward Lisa. Am I? Only if she needs me, the woman replied, a smirk tugging at the corners of her mouth. I'm Jamie, and I couldn't help but overhear. It sounds like you're on the verge of something big. We're just talking, Lisa interjected, but the challenge was clear in her eyes. What do you know about our plans, Jamie? Plans? That's the beauty of it. Jamie leaned closer, her eyes gleaming. You think helping Mia will be simple? Every child has a story, and unpacking that requires commitment, time, and the willingness to dive deep. That's where I come in. Mike's mind began racing. Her presence felt intimidating but also thrilling, like a catalyst. Everyday life with Ethan felt predictable, mundane. The prospect of involvement on a higher level whispered appeals that tingled his senses. I need to understand how I can do more, he said, surprising even himself with resolve he hadn't felt moments before. But can I really make a difference? Plenty of people start off just wanting to help, Jamie said, her gaze piercing. But what they often don't realize is that making a difference means exposing your own flaws and understanding your weaknesses. It sounds like that's what Lisa is trying to tell you. Mike felt exposed. He'd always prided himself on his resilience, yet if anything, he felt as fragile as the paper he'd been scribbling notes on. Could he face the truth of his shortcomings while reaching out to others, or would the process be too painful? What's the first step? He found himself asking, leaning closer, equal parts curiosity and desperation. You need a plan, Jamie replied, voice steady. Gather everything you've learned about Mia and her family, about what you're willing to invest. Face the realities of the situation, whether it's emotional, physical, or financial. Then, she continued, you reach out to community resources, support systems, real networks that can help you sustain this dream of helping more kids. The practicality of her words struck a chord, resonating with something deep within him. This was no longer merely about righting a single wrong, it had morphed into a potential calling, a mission that could shape the lives of others, including Ethan's. As Mike absorbed the implications, his mind whirled with questions. What personal vulnerabilities would be exposed? Could he chip away at the fear born from past failures? Ethan, what do you think? He turned to his son. In his youthful enthusiasm, he saw the mirror of his potential. Does this sound like something we can do together? Yeah. Ethan's excitement sparkled in his eyes. We can be superheroes. We can save more kids, Dad. No, it's not a game, Lisa interjected, her seriousness cutting through the buoyant air between them. This is a path, but it's fraught with challenges. If you're committed, you have to accept that failure is part of the growth. Are you ready to bear that weight? The gravity of her words rooted Mike in place, amplifying the inner conflict simmering beneath the surface. This was more than a passing conversation, more than an impulse to help. It was a commitment that could redefine his existence. He took a deep breath, feeling the pull in every direction. What was he willing to risk? The thought of facing a deeper transformation chipped at his foundation. Was he truly ready for this leap into the unknown? As he contemplated the daunting landscape ahead, Mike found himself facing another realization. If now wasn't his moment to grasp commitment, then when would it be? And just as the weight of that realization settled in him, Jamie stepped forward. Again, chin tilted, voice low. Don't you dare forget that the greatest strides come not from comfort, but from discomfort. What will you choose, Mike? In that charged silence, Mike understood that every moment stretched before him like a vast expanse, filled with the promise of change but also the menace of uncertainty. Tomorrow, I'll know, he whispered, a weighty resolve creeping back into his words. The dawn would bring answers, but the path ahead only tightened, leaving unanswered questions about the risks he would need to take. Would he step into the discomfort required? Would he transcend his past, seeking the transformation that whispered to him? And as he turned back to the group, he sensed a gravity in the air, thick with determination, unsure of what awaited him next. Mike awoke the next morning with the bright sunshine casting an unfiltered glow into his cluttered living room. It was far too early for his usual rhythm, and yet, today felt different. Today was the day he would begin to chart a course he hadn't fully understood until yesterday. He poured himself a cup of coffee, the steam curling upward like the questions in his head. What did commitment mean for him? Could he actually stretch beyond his fears and transform not only his life but Ethan's as well? He considered the conversation with Jamie and Lisa, feeling the weight of their expectations pressing down on his shoulders. Once seated at the kitchen table, he retrieved the notes he had started compiling on Mia, the girl they aimed to help. Each word felt like a piece of raw potential, a stick of dynamite waiting to be lit. Why was the prospect of aiding a child pressing against him so intensely? It was daunting, yet it sparked something dormant inside him. With every sip of coffee, he explored his thoughts. Each small action felt monumental. Picking up a pen felt more like drawing a line in the sand. A line that divided complacency from purpose. He began scribbling down what Jamie had suggested: a list of practical steps, community resources, and actionable goals. Surely there would be organizations that could facilitate the care Mia needed, people who shared his passion. Yet, he fought the instinct to lose himself in the minutiae. This venture required balance, and he knew that if he spiraled into analysis paralysis, he would retreat back to the safety of his uninspiring routine. Dad! Ethan's voice broke through his concentration. He rushed into the kitchen, his energy contagious. Can we go to that place today? The one where they have all the kids. Mike's heart swelled at the enthusiasm radiating from his son. Yes, we can. That's actually on my agenda, he replied, trying to sound nonchalant while feeling a thrill coursing through his veins. Cool. Can I show them my drawings? Ethan's excitement was palpable, and in that moment, Mike saw his son not just as a child, but as a partner in this mission. Of course. They'll love that. After breakfast, they made their way to the community center, a building sprawled out like a welcoming arms in the heart of the neighborhood. Mike's nervousness ebbed slightly as he walked alongside Ethan. This was the first time they would engage with other kids in a meaningful way, and that shared experience felt like stepping into the light after a long period of darkness. Upon entering, they were greeted by a montage of activity, children laughing, parents consulting, and hopeful conversations taking place. A woman behind the main desk gestured them forward. Mike introduced himself, mentioning how they wanted to help and how Ethan was excited to share his artistic talents. After a brief discussion, it became clear that there were several programs that could benefit Mia. List in hand, Mike transitioned quickly from anxiety to determination. Here was an opportunity to leverage his connections and gather resources. He envisioned reaching out to local businesses, asking for contributions that could ease Mia's hurdles. But in the midst of this newfound clarity, a shadow of doubt flickered in Mike's mind. He had never approached businesses, let alone made a case for charity. Would they take him seriously? The stinging memory of past failures and unfulfilled aspirations crept back in, threatening to undermine his resolve. "You all right, Dad?" Ethan's inquiry pulled Mike back into the present, snapping the web of self-doubt with the innocence of a child's query. He saw Ethan's expectant face, glowing with unyielding belief. "Yeah, buddy. Just thinking." As they settled down with a group of kids, the atmosphere shifted. They began sharing stories, laughter intermingling with art, and Ethan brought life to the room with his drawings. Mike watched his son shine, feeling a warmth grow within him, an appreciation of the genuine connection being formed. But as the conversations deepened, Mike questioned his motivations. Was he truly committed to this path out of a desire to make things right for Mia, or was he also seeking validation for his own shortcomings? The duality of his motives twisted in his gut. Still, amidst the confusion, something inside him urged him to push forward. This was about more than just making an impact. It was about learning to embrace vulnerability and rejection to create change even when it scared him. As they left the community center, Mike took a deep breath, realizing it was just the beginning of a journey still shrouded in uncertainty. He was ready to reach out and confront obstacles even if they lived inside him. The thought lingered, echoing with a haunting familiarity. Was he prepared to fully invest himself in the discomfort that lay ahead? As they got into the car, he noticed a flyer on the dashboard. The bold text across the top read, "Help us change lives together." He clenched the flyer tightly, feeling its weight, both an opportunity and a challenge. Tomorrow, he resolved inwardly. Tomorrow would be the day he took the first leap into the unknown. And yet, the deeper question remained: could he redefine not just Mia's life but also his own? The answer hung in the air, thick with possibility. Mike stood in his kitchen, the morning light spilling through the window and illuminating the path that lay ahead. The uncertainty of the day pressed against him, yet he felt an undeniable spark. Today wasn't just another ordinary day. It was a pivotal step in reshaping not only Mia's life but his own. He took a determined breath as thoughts collided in his mind. With the flyer freshly pressed in his pocket, he could almost visualize the upcoming interactions with local businesses. Closing his eyes, he imagined the exchange, the words he would use to convey Mia's story, the way his voice would rise with conviction. He would share their passion, painting a picture of hope and necessity that couldn't be ignored. Yet, apprehension drummed in his gut. He had always recoiled at the idea of placing himself on the line. The vulnerability of bearing his intentions unnerved him. What if they dismissed him? What if the sound of his request was swallowed whole by the silence of indifference? The memories of missed opportunities surfaced, cloaked in self-doubt. Mike shifted his focus to Ethan, who was busy scribbling away with colors that burst vibrantly on paper once more. The innocence radiating from his son grounded Mike, offering him the courage he so desperately needed. After a quick breakfast, Mike gathered his notes and composed himself. Before stepping out, he glanced at the mirror, meeting his own gaze. A silent promise flickered in his reflection: today, he would act. The sun hung high as Mike parked outside the small hardware store, the first on his list. He felt the familiar grip of nerves twist inside him, but this time, the anticipation intertwined with determination. As he walked in, the bell above the door chimed slightly, announcing his presence. "Hey there. How can I help you?" The clerk greeted him with a friendly smile. "Hi, I'm Mike," he managed, maintaining eye contact. "I'm looking to see if your business would be willing to contribute to a cause that's important to me." He launched into his pitch, detailing Mia's situation and the resources she desperately needed, trying to infuse his words with urgency. The clerk listened intently, nodding along while jotting down notes. To Mike's surprise, he didn't feel the typical weight of anxiety bearing down. He was in control. After he finished recounting Mia's story, the clerk leaned back, considering. "I think we can do something," he said slowly. "Let me talk to the manager." With that, he disappeared into the back room as Mike stood waiting, adrenaline coursing through him. Minutes passed, and just as doubt began to creep back in, the manager appeared. She was younger than Mike expected, her demeanor casual yet sharp. They exchanged pleasantries before Mike divulged the details again, pouring his heart into each word. This was no longer just about Mia. It was a revelation of his own hidden potential. He was in charge of steering the course now. The manager listened intently, her brow furrowing as she processed the request. "You know, we often donate to local causes," she said thoughtfully, "but typically, we need to see some sort of proof of impact." The confidence he'd built began to waver. Without thinking, he blurted, "I could share updates about Mia's progress. I want to show that every contribution leads to real change." There it was, the conviction he didn't know he possessed. The manager mulled it over, then nodded. "All right, let us start with a small donation. If you can show us how it helps, we might be willing to contribute more down the line." Mike felt a rush of relief. "Thank you, that means so much." He left the store with the donation receipt and an increasing sense of resolve. Perhaps this was the authenticity he had been searching for within himself all along. As he moved through the day, each visit unfolded in a similar manner. Each business encounter ignited a newfound belief in his capabilities, peeling back layers of long-standing insecurity. With every conversation, he was discovering hidden strengths: his ability to connect, to inspire. The moments that had once felt daunting transformed, each interaction an opportunity for impact rather than rejection. Yet, even as excitement fueled him, uneasiness lingered in the back of his mind like an elusive whisper. Would this progress sustain itself? Would he be able to maintain this momentum? Just as he was about to step into another shop, Mike hesitated. Could the fear of the next big leap, where vulnerability got even deeper, halt his progress? He squared his shoulders, ready to push through. But just before opening the door, a familiar face caught his attention at the end of the street. It was Jamie, and he was rushing towards him, urgency in his steps. "What is going on?" Mike called out, half expecting a casual catch-up. But as Jamie closed the distance, the look in his eyes hinted at something far more significant. "Mike, you won't believe what I just heard," he panted, breathlessly. "It's about Mia, something we need to discuss right now." The knot in Mike's stomach tightened with both curiosity and trepidation. What news could shift the course they had just begun to navigate? Mike's pulse quickened as Jamie's breathless words hung in the air, laden with urgency. Questions raced through his mind, slaloming through anxiety and anticipation. What could possibly necessitate such a drastic conversation? He gestured for Jamie to step aside, the bustling street fading into a blur as their surroundings dulled. Here, a cocoon of focus formed around them. "Tell me what is going on," Mike pressed, his voice steady despite the apprehension surging within. Jamie glanced around, ensuring no one was within earshot. "I just spoke with someone who knows Mr. Collins, the CEO of that tech company up on Valley Drive. Apparently, he's heard about Mia's situation, and he's interested." Shock rippled through Mike. "Interested? In what way?" Jamie hesitated, searching for the right words. "There are rumors he's going to launch a new community initiative, and he wants to feature stories of individuals overcoming struggles." Mia's story caught his attention as an example of resilience and hope. Uncertainty hardened within Mike. This was an incredible opportunity, yet the weight of the unknown pressed heavy on his chest. "But what does this mean for us? He's not just giving away money, is he?" His skepticism was thick, fueled by years of cynicism that came from barely scraping by. "No, it's more than that," Jamie assured him, excitement igniting in his eyes. "If he decides to take her story public, it could lead to funding and resources that we could never dream of. But we have to act quickly." Mike felt a whirlwind of emotions, hope mixed with apprehension. A chance to change the trajectory of Mia's life and maybe his own loomed ahead, but the daunting reality of it all pressed down on him. He had fought against the currents of doubt before, but now, standing on this precipice, the fear of failure reared its head once again. What do we need to do? He felt a resolve forming, built on the back of all the small victories he had achieved today. We need proof, something tangible that showcases Mia's journey and the impact of every contribution. Pictures, testimonials, anything that can humanize her story. He wants to see the change that his involvement can create. I can do that, Mike said instinctively, digging deep into the confidence that had just taken root. What else? Jamie placed a firm hand on Mike's shoulder, his intensity mounting. We need to be prepared to present the emotional and practical aspects of her situation. This is our chance, Mike. If Collins sees potential, if he feels the connection, it can change everything. The desire to seize this opportunity coursed through Mike, yet it necessitated a level of vulnerability he was still grappling with. The moment demanded commitment, not just in presenting Mia's story but in exposing the truth about his own journey. Can I handle this? He wondered silently, grappling with his fears. Yet beneath the doubt simmered a burgeoning identity, forged through each step he had taken that day. There was strength in acceptance. I'll help you, Jamie replied, as if reading Mike's thoughts. We can outline her story together, and then we'll take it to him. We can't waste time, let us start tonight. The energy emanating from Jamie echoed Mike's own growing sense of determination. This was more than just about Mia. It became a vital juncture for Mike as well, a chance to prove to himself that he was capable, that he could fight for something worth believing in. As they headed back toward Mike's car, the weight of the day seemed to shift. No longer was he simply navigating the treacherous waters of vulnerability alone, he had a partner in this uncharted territory. But as urgency took hold, Mike felt the familiar tendrils of doubt creep back in, whispering reminders of the risks involved. What if Collins lost interest? What if they failed to exhibit the profound impact they hoped for? With thoughts spiraling, he couldn't shake the fear of this being just another fleeting opportunity. What if focus on what you can control, Jamie interjected, recalibrating the moment. Their eyes locked, and in that instant, Mike understood. This was about embracing the fight, acknowledging fear but pushing through it, allowing it to propel him forward rather than hold him back. With fire reigniting within him, Mike steeled himself against the doubts. I won't let this pass, he declared, the resolve resonating in his core. Yet, as they sped toward their destination, the nagging fear lingered, one that warned of the fine line between seizing potential and propelling toward failure. What would happen if they didn't meet expectations? The streets rolled rapidly past as they drew closer to both a chance for Mia and the deeper reckoning awaiting Mike. A pressing urgency solidified around what was at stake. What lay ahead could reshape everything they knew, provided that Mike dared to embrace the journey, no matter how daunting. But another question began to surface in his mind: how much was he truly willing to risk for the sake of this turning point? Mike's heart raced as he and Jamie arrived at his apartment, the urgency from earlier still coursing through him. The rays of sun illuminated the living room, but he felt a shadow hanging over him. A decision loomed like a storm cloud waiting to burst. He glanced around at the clutter. Reminders of routine were now intermingling with the promise of transformation. Today would be the day he would show Mia's story in a way that could evoke action, provoke emotion, and draw connections, a task that seemed simple yet monumental. Before he could second-guess himself, he reached for the notebook where he had compiled key details about Mia and the resources needed. He felt the weight of expectation, not only from Jamie but from within himself. It was time to level up in a way he never thought possible. Let us spread everything out, Mike suggested, his voice steady. Jamie nodded, quickly laying out photographs they'd collected of Mia, along with testimonials from her brother, Ethan, and the other kids at the community center who had been inspired by their story. Each piece was a thread in the fabric of composure and hope. As they assembled the elements, a vision emerged, one that highlighted not only the urgency of Mia's needs but also the profound impact that communal effort could have. It was about resilience in the face of adversity. It was about connection. The collection of images and words spoke volumes, but now it was time to transform them into a compelling narrative. Here's the emotional hook, Jamie began, excitement threading through her voice. We start with Mia's smile, capture people's attention with her innocence, then dive into her struggle. Don't shy away from the vulnerability, it's what will get Mr. Collins to listen. Mike felt renewed energy rush through him. As much as he feared the risks of vulnerability, he found courage in Jamie's perspective. It's not just about her, it's about what it takes to overcome. Not just the resources but the hearts that come forward to help. They spent hours fleshing out Mia's story, realizing they were crafting something altogether transformative. Jamie brought a flair of creativity, weaving in personal anecdotes that illustrated their shared journey towards change. In the process, Mike began to draw from his own experiences, turning the raw material of doubt into a narrative of triumph. With each passing moment, Mike felt his old barriers cracking. By opening himself up, he encountered layers of resilience he never knew existed. This is not just Mia's story, it's mine too, he reflected as Jamie shared a heartfelt reminder that revealing vulnerabilities connected them to their purpose. As the sunlight faded into dusk, they assembled their final presentation. A palpable sense of achievement washed over Mike. This was more than just a pitch, it was a testimony to the partnerships formed within adversity. They created an emotional impact that encapsulated the essence of hope and connection. Clean and polished, the presentation felt like a culmination of Mike's personal growth. He had learned to overcome his fears and embrace the discomfort inherent in vulnerability. Moments before leaving for their meeting, he looked in the mirror again. The man that stared back felt different, confident, committed, a true agent of change. As they arrived at the sleek building of Collins Tech, Mike took a deep breath, holding fast to the resolve that had built within him. The gilded facade of the building loomed like an altar to opportunity, a sharp contrast to the humble beginnings from which he had emerged. Jamie gave him an encouraging nod as they walked toward the reception area, igniting an unspoken bond of determination. Entering the glass-walled conference room, the slight tremor of nerves echoed in his chest, yet the weight of expectation turned into motivation. Mr. Collins greeted them with an assured welcome, and for the first time, Mike was relieved that this meeting was not just another step on a ladder, it was about impactful change. With their presentation laid out, he felt empowered to share Mia's journey. This was the moment delineating the past from the future. He spoke passionately, described her story, the needs surrounding her, and the ripple effect of community involvement against the chilly backdrop of hardship. The words flowed effortlessly, those threads in the narrative weaving together enhanced by his experiences, the triumphs, fears, and connections built along the way. As he concluded, the weight of his vulnerability lifted and a sense of clarity emerged. When he finished, the room buzzed with thoughtful silence, Jamie's eyes reflecting pride mirrored by Mr. Collins' thoughtful expression. "You've painted a powerful picture," Collins said, leaning slightly forward. "Mia's story is compelling. It's a stark reminder of what it means to have community drive an opportunity worth tapping into." Each word sent a rush of validation through Mike. This was not just a pitch, it was the manifestation of his growth, a culmination of his struggles and triumphs, extended along with a promise to advocate for Mia. "I want to help," Collins continued, "but I also want to ensure this is sustainable. We need to look at processes and long-term impact. How can you both guide others to help in a way that uplifts?" Mike nodded, heart racing. A commitment unfolded before him, one where he envisioned facilitating not just immediate care for Mia, but building a model of support that could reach countless others. This was no longer just about one child, this could evolve into a movement. "Let us work together," he proposed, excitedly. "We can deliver a framework that connects families needing help with those who are willing to give time and resources. We can show what happens when hope is met with action." With that, everything within Mike consolidated into solid confidence. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the junction at which his fear turned to action, vulnerability became strength, and commitment ignited change. As he left the office with Jamie, exhilaration flowed freely, pulsing through him like new breath. He glanced at her, who wore a look of encouragement and belief that their efforts had struck something significant. "Whatever happens next is just the beginning," Mike declared, feeling the truth resonate in his very being. This journey brought unexpected transformations. He had surveyed anxiety and emerged with the fervor for growth. A sense of achievement washed over him like warm sunlight radiating through the winter chill. He had not only proven to himself what was possible, but that change was a shared endeavor, one that Andrew, Ethan, and Mia could embrace together. Together, they were taking the first steps toward writing their shared legacy, and Mike finally understood it was not about the struggles they faced but the paths they created to rise above them. With a renewed sense of purpose, he recognized that he had crossed into a new life built on resilience, partnership, and living proof that kindness and courage could change everything. This was his moment, one to embrace the challenges and grow from them. Mike had shown true commitment toward improvement, ready to face whatever horizons lie ahead with confidence. If this journey has inspired you, you need to subscribe now to follow more exclusive emotional stories that illuminate the human spirit. Don't wait even one more second. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure these stories reach others who need hope and inspiration. Comment below with your thoughts and reactions about this climactic journey and how you think Mike's transformations will impact others. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who could benefit from witnessing this powerful conclusion. Let us build a community that champions personal overcoming stories.